We're here. I think we're on different sides, though.
Yeah, woke up on.
You're usually on the left.
Yeah, I left the studio, came back in. Whoever gets in first gets on the left.
Well, this messes the whole thing up, man.
I know.
People are going to be disoriented. They're not going to know what to do. They're going to think, "Uh-oh, he's gone." They're going to think, "You're me, I'm you." Let's get this party started, says M. Retsky. He's right. I apologize. This is my fault for being 11 minutes late. It is not Michael's fault. I was late.
That's a whole commercial break right there. That's a whole first block. Traditional TV.
God damn it.
That's a segment.
We could have covered the Iraq War by now and been done with it. Jesus. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, I got to stop doing that. But anyway, I'm here. We're here. It's all good. Don't ever give up. We love you too. Thank you, M. Retsky. We got a lot to talk about. We got news. We got global developments. We got geopolitics. We got Donald Trump wilding out. This is going to be a hood version of the news.
That's one of my least favorite holdovers of 2010s liberal culture is like hood versions of everything. If you remember thug notes that were like, yeah, or like,
this will be thug notes, hood version of the news delivered by two guys with almost zero melanin, which, is there anything more anti-racist than that?
anything more safe edgy as they go.
Oh no. Yeah. All right, man, let's do it. Since we're late, what do we got here?
Man, I've been reading Carl Jung.
Why?
And that's literally all I want to talk about.
Because of Jordan Peterson?
Well, no. Since getting back into religion, and I read his essay, The Undiscovered Self. And the hypothesis that it basically framed the pre-modern world versus the modern world as the ultimate conflict. He says that religion is the thing that makes man an individual, that makes man not susceptible to mass hysteria, mass hypnosis, that the totalitarian communists and totalitarian ideologies of the 20th century, they only exist because they are composed of individuals who lack any individuality. They lack any personal development. And the antidote for that is a direct religious experience with the transcendent. And once you directly experience the transcendent has an authority over the state, one that is bigger than the state, and it gives the individual a basis upon which to see themselves as having a moral authority and a moral responsibility to act independent of the state and to resist that. And the only way that these totalitarian ideologies and the fanaticism of mass movements take over is if there's nothing going on the inside of people and they have no standing, no grounding beyond the material world that is given in front of them. And so in 1956, Carl Jung called on individuals to embrace mysticism, become human, and resist totalitarianism.
Yeah, it's not working.
Well, it hasn't been attempted yet, I think.
No, I mean, it's not working for me. The argument is not working for me. Maybe it will. I don't know.
He makes a distinction between religions and creeds. He says creeds are where religion interacts with the material world and condenses their beliefs to a system of like comprehensible, almost material, not quite material, but almost material restraints and beliefs. But he's talking about direct experience for the most part. So there's a mysticism aspect of it. And he's talking about, a moral backbone and a grounding that is bigger than simple scientific facts.
So a religion to Jung and to you, is it not just a different ideology?
Well, the thing is, this is what I wanted to get at with too, because we're going to be doing postmodernism next week. But if you presuppose that God is real, or you presuppose that there's something beyond the material world.
Well, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
If you presuppose,
well, it's not hard.
Jesus is the Son of God. Yeah. You can go a long way once you presuppose it.
Yeah. Well, if you don't have the assumption, well, it's a supposition already that only the material world exists. That's a supposition in and of itself. So if you agree with most of humanity throughout time and existence, that there's something beyond material experience, and that consciousness is more than brain functions and brain scans, and that there's something beyond you, maybe a creator, maybe a higher intelligence, maybe a collective intelligence, maybe a collective unconscious, and that higher being compels you to behave a certain way, or that higher being offers you something that is greater than the promises of the state or the responsibilities of the state, and that the state, if it has any authority, gets its authority from the higher being, then you circumvent the state and you directly have your own authority, and you don't fall prey to whatever the mass movement is. I think if you look at the memoirs of people who survived concentration camps and the people who resisted the totalitarian ideologies of the 20th century, the people who did most effectively were people with religious backbones, people who believed in something transcendent.
Solzhenitsyn,
Viktor Frankl,
Martin Luther King,
Maximilian Kolbe, all of them. Anybody who, and Solzhenitsyn himself said the people who believed in the state and believed that things would get worked out, or were cynical and didn't have anything to fall back on, were the first to go, and the ones who couldn't resist their imprisonment.
Yeah. I mean, I think Solzhenitsyn and Martin Luther King are maybe the best examples from the 20th century of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Both of them deeply Christian men, both of them oppressed kind of objectively. I mean, I think according to anybody living today, we would see, even you cold-blooded alt-right frog Twitter guys watching this.
Name calling already.
Huh?
Name calling already.
Not you this time. I'm never going to call you a racist again. I learned that lesson. But there are those who do think King was a joke. I mean, in some ways, and it's funny because I've probably written more criticism of Martin Luther King than any other historian of the civil rights movement. But anyway, we can't deny, can we, that legal segregation, which King lived under, was a form of oppression. Anyway, Solzhenitsyn, of course, everybody on the alt-right loves him and they think he was oppressed, but most of us think that King and black people in the South prior to 1965 were oppressed in some objective legal way. I mean, in ways, in other words, that we would not want to live under ourselves. That's how I think of it. That's what makes it objective to me. Would I want to live under legal segregation where I can't have access to certain drinking fountains and swimming pools and public parks, etc.? Right. Okay. So anyway, in both cases, and they were coterminous pretty much. In fact, I mean, Solzhenitsyn was probably 10 or 20 years younger than King, I'm guessing, but mid 20th century figures, US and the Soviet Union, and both were oppressed. I mean, Solzhenitsyn spent time in the Gulag famously. King spent time in jail in addition to being segregated. But importantly, and this is to the point you're making, I think, both of these guys, as I said, were deeply Christian, devout, true Christians. From birth, they were Christians. So they had this different, separate moral structure, moral code, moral kingdom. The kingdom of Christ. I mean, it is a kingdom. right? And so if you know that, if you feel and know that you belong to that separate, different kingdom with its own moral laws, and you in your heart know that it is higher, it is the only kingdom, it is God's kingdom, right? And you're living in the earthly realm in a different kingdom of men, and we know that men are sinful and wicked, and they can create all sorts of laws, usually self-serving, often oppressive, go all the way back to the Old Testament and the New Testament. This is what is said, right? There you are, you're living on the earthly realm in this kingdom of men that is unjust and oppressive, yet you always know in your heart and in your mind and in your soul that you are really of a different kingdom with an entirely different set of rules and laws. Yeah, then I think you could go to the gulag and feel good about who you are. I think you could march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge and feel good about who you are. You could go to the Birmingham City Jail and feel good about who you are and be unbothered by the criticism, like Jesus himself.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus himself, before he was crucified, he was criticized viciously, but he was unbothered by it because he belonged to a different kingdom. And so, sure. Now, the question is, Michael, though.
Yeah.
You're right. That is correct. And I think there are many, as you said, there are many other examples of this happening where you have not just Christians, but, Gandhi's another example, right? His own spiritual faith, I think, gave him this bedrock, this foundation from which he could look at and oppose and resist and refuse to assimilate into the British colonial oppressor kingdom. Sure. Mm-hmm. The question is, do you want to choose that particular kingdom? Because there's other kingdoms that are just as antagonistic to things like Southern segregation and Soviet communism and British imperialism. There are other ways of thinking of being, like being an atheist, like being a communist in a capitalist empire, like being a capitalist in a communist empire, like being an agnostic or an atheist or a Christian in an Islamic empire, being like a Druze Christian in Gaza. Sure. But why not? But I'm saying there's multiple choices here. It's not just the choice of the Christian king and the Christian kingdom as this alternate, separate world, and really kingdom is the word, in your mind and in your heart. And you can walk through any world, any government, any society, and feel this in you. I'm imagining this is what real Christians feel.
Yeah.
And you're unaffected by what they say about you. And you, right? You always know you are godly. And so it doesn't matter what these earthly creatures say about you or what they do to you.
The idea is internal freedom. Freedom. Yeah.
Well, freedom defined as slavery.
Well, yeah.
No, really.
Yeah.
To God.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, there's an eschatology, or there's a whole thing about what the will is. And if you believe that human beings are good, which not everybody does, but if you believe that human beings are good and that they will good, then if you are doing good things and you are following your conscience, you are as free as possible. You are not free when you are disobeying your conscience. You are a lesser version of yourself. You are a slave to sin. You are a slave to other forces in the world that you wish you couldn't follow. The fully actualized individual with the most freedom from the Christian worldview is somebody who obeys God and does good. And then once you do that, there are goods that you get to choose from, and there's what they say is there's such a great diversity amongst the saints. And there is this is a C.S. Lewis quote. There's a great, beautiful diversity amongst the saints, and there is a horrible sameness among the tyrants. That evil people seem to have all the same pathologies, and good people seem to have a beautiful, blossoming variety of ways that they make the world a better place.
Okay.
But,
interesting.
Yeah.
This is good. This is good
Yeah.
because it actually segues perfectly into the discussion I want to have today about imperialism. I know we talk about it a lot, but like there is what I think is an imperialist psychology, an imperialist set of assumptions, an imperialist set of cultural norms that are dovetailing with what you're saying here. You are assuming, I believe, that Christian morality, right, is simply superior and better.
Well,
to all other forms of morality.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, and I'm partial to it. It's objectively true, and I'm partial to it.
Which might be true, and that might be true, but like you clearly can't prove it, can you?
Well,
I mean, I know that Jordan Peterson thinks he can prove it, and Sam Harris thinks he can prove it, but no, they do. Well, they think. I mean, Sam Harris, he doesn't call it Christian because he doesn't want to say that. But Sam Harris believes in basically Judeo-Christian ethics, right?
Yeah, he
thinks it's objective. I think it's just a funny. I mean, it's like of all the things that intellectuals have said in 2,000 or 3,000 years of public intellectuals existing, to me, the idea of objective morality is the funniest. And Sam Harris is the most recent expositor of this, just so funny, just such a funny idea. I mean, an objective morality, but he gives lectures. He gets paid thousands of dollars to say this. He made his name basically on this idea that there's such a thing as objective morality without being religious. Now, if you're religious like you are, and you said, when you say there's an objective morality, I don't think it's stupid at all. That's a different claim, because you're saying this book is true. And I'm like, okay, well, there's no argument for or against that. Based on that, sure, of course, you would believe it's logically consistent, right? Based on the presumptions for you.
Well,
Sam Harris has Harris has no presumptions, right?
Yeah.
Dude is like, oh no, none of this stuff made any sense, and that's the only thing I agree with him on. Then he's like, oh, but there is an objective morality. We find it through science.
Yeah.
Which actually all he means is, because he uses deranged, psychotic, crazy. What are the synonyms he uses to describe anything he doesn't like? And then it all just comes down to basically 21st century Western American upper class elite common sense assumptions about the world. So the basic assumptions carried by people who live in Los Angeles and Manhattan, and I mean this, is what Sam Harris just knows in his heart is what is true and good, and everything else needs to be judged against that. But for you want to say that Christian morality, Christian norms are simply better, and therefore...
Well, I'm not making that argument yet.
You kind of are, but your argument requires that.
Well, I think Christianity is the best way to do this, but I'm more talking about a direct encounter with the transcendent, whatever that is. And I'm talking about individual development and, moral development as a way to resist tyranny. And that the only way tyranny takes over is if people are morally empty, they're vacuous, and mass psychosis, mass formations take over, and mass movements take over. And the totalitarian ideologies, liberalism, fascism, communism, they're all materialist ideologies. They're all, we're going to help you. This is how we do it. This is the mechanisms of the state. You're on our side. They're not transcendent ideologies. They're
not.
So fascism can incorporate some things culturally sometimes, but I mean, it's modernist, you know, it's a modernist phenomenon. It's, it's got its roots in futurism and about technological progress. And any religion it incorporates is usually some form of paganism or occultism to give you more power somehow. But I'm talking about appealing to a higher authority, developing your character as the only way to resist tyranny. And this is also kind of a classical liberal argument, like a John Locke or a Ron Paul argument, that it doesn't matter who the leaders are. It matters about the moral character of the people. So the only way things happen is the moral character of the people. And to talk about the news, I've been very disappointed with the moral character of the American people, and it seems very cynical right now. It seems like we're hopeless. And I'm just like, we need to
have you ever been to Las Vegas? I mean, the moral character of the American people. But it's funny because for me, I'm on the side of Las Vegas. I like, that's what I like about Americans, is that they have no moral character in their day-to-day lives. For the most part, they talk a great game about being super moral and Christian and Judeo-Christian and family values, and we're going to hunt down groomers, and, you know, we believe in family, but we're fucking 6 people in addition to our wife, and we never talk to our kids, and it goes, and we are addicted to porn, and we're alcoholics, and it goes on and on and on. I mean, I think scratched the surface of how Americans are not Christian in their day-to-day lives, but boy, they talk a great game.
Yeah. And I think
like Trump and MAGA in particular, and Elon Musk. I mean, that's the funniest shit. I mean, the MAGA crowd, and I'm going to write a piece about this. The hedonism of MAGA is my favorite thing about MAGA. I mean, it's like one boob job after another. It's just, I mean, Kristi Noem doing basically a soft core, because all the MAGA guys on Twitter, did you see this? All the MAGA guys on Twitter were like literally espousing fantasies about Kristi Noem doing things to them when she's like with her boob job and her fake lips and the whole, the filters and the whole, she's dressed and groomed and made up like a porn star standing in front of a prison cell full of Salvadoran prisoners doing this, you know, threat to the world, don't come to our country because we stand for American values. What are American values? Being a Vegas hooker, which I hope is true, because that's the America I love. The Vegas hookers is the great, is there a better America? But no, we need to be the America of prisons.
Well,
that's so much sexier. But it's so confusing because she's standing there with her fake tits and her fake lips and her fake tan in front of this prison saying, we're for law and order and discipline. And right. It's like, no, you're not. Go on Pornhub. That's your style. What do you?
A lot of sexual fantasies take place in the prison, I'm told.
Maybe she has been on Pornhub. Maybe that's where she got the idea for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, so Michael, your bigger point. So, I mean, I think your argument is correct. I mean, and it is, I think, logically correct. It is philosophically makes sense. And historically, Jesus, it's almost unassailable. Like, look at all, as I pointed out just a couple of examples, right? But like, how about the Catholic Church in Poland in the 1980s?
Oh,
Solidarity.
Yeah.
Lech Walenska, what's his name? Jesus. Anyway, the whole Solidarity Catholic movement, trade union, anti-communist movement inside Warsaw Pact Poland, which was the beginning of the end of the whole communist international movement. Oh, it goes on and on. Right. Of course, if you have a different contradictory ideology to the one around you that's ruling your world,
an ideology that you're willing to die for, also a transcendent ideology that you're willing to forego your entire material existence for.
Right, totally. So all I'm saying is, man, you're right as always. You're almost always right. 98.5% of the time you're right. But it's do you want to choose another controlling, repressive, totalitarian ideology to stave off this other one. Because I'm sorry, but I have a fondness, especially for Catholicism, but that's what Christianity and Catholicism largely have been. I mean, you don't have freedom in there.
Yeah, all it gives you is internal peace and happiness. That's all it gives you.
I mean, if you can promise, great. I know, I get it, right? Yeah. And that's a great thing. And if you get that, I'm so happy for you. And please do that if that's what you get from it.
Yeah.
Become a Catholic if you get internal peace, for sure. But a lot of people don't. And anyway, I'm just saying, how about this? How about like another way of thinking that is also fundamentally antagonistic to dictatorships, authoritarianism, totalitarianism, communism, fascism, the state being in your business? I actually think there's many other ways of thinking that are completely secular. Atheism is dumb, because to me it's just like making a truth claim that's unsupportable, which is why I've been an agnostic since I was about 16 years old. But like, there's another way of thinking that I think's been developed by a lot of people like me over the last like 50, maybe 100 years, which is secular, which comes from some aspects of left-wing politics, some aspects of right-wing politics, some aspects of libertarian politics and anarchist politics, which really is kind of like, it's not just a worldview, but it's also a way of being. It's really a culture. You might even say it's a personality type and a psychology. Which is, I would say, like, intellectuals, broadly speaking, political intellectuals of the last 100 to 150 years or so, who are secular, don't believe in God, but they either believe in things like the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and, right, natural law, natural rights, or, like me, just prefer, enjoy, would rather live in a country, in a place where things like the Bill of Rights exist, where there isn't a dictator, where the government can't arrest you, put you on a plane, and send you to a Salvadoran prison because they don't like you. I actually think that I belong to a kind of personality, a way of thinking that is just as antagonistic as Catholic anti-communist revolutionaries in Poland in 1987. You following me?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sold on their.
Yeah. So I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
You hear me, right? I'm saying you're right. I am saying you are right, and I am also saying to everyone listening that Michael Weimer's proposal or offer or alternative to how to stave off dictatorship and authoritarianism is 100% effective and historically correct, and that is a totally valid choice that I have zero problem with people choosing, and people can choose that. I think if you did become a devout Catholic or an Orthodox Christian, I do think you're very likely to have, like, as we said, like a psychological, spiritual basis and an intellectual one of opposition to authoritarianism. But I'm just saying, you don't have to choose that. There's other choices. You can go Weimer, you can go Russell.
Yeah. I'm not yet making the argument for Christianity, although I think it's most effective.
Aren't you? Okay.
Well, not yet. Not yet.
Yeah. When are you rolling that out?
Yeah.
When is that? What's the schedule for that? For the rollout?
It's the rollout. Yeah, but it's more so, any of the Abrahamic faiths work. Buddhism can work. Like, just a direct.
Okay.
It's more about a direct experience with the transcendent and an adherence to a moral law that can constrain you the same way totalitarians constrain you.
Man.
But it's the only thing that can make you strong enough to actually resist totalitarianism if it comes knocking at your door, and it can isolate you the same way. But yeah, I just don't think that a secular approach, anti-authoritarian approach, is strong enough. Has the footing, the standing to do so. And I think it can lend itself to materialism, and it can lend itself to easily getting run over or easily getting swept up in the moment of a materialist.
Wow. Yeah, Nietzsche. I'm hearing Friedrich Nietzsche in my ear. Yeah. I think it's from our course. I think he's speaking to me from our course. I can hear him. Oh, Friedrich, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry that my brilliant partner is saying such things right now. But wait, okay, listen. So,
how did Friedrich Nietzsche's life end up? What happened to him? Was he? Yeah.
Excellent point. No, true. And I relate to him so much on that. I mean, it was, man, when I look at Nietzsche's, like the end of Nietzsche, the way his life was and his body was and physically and his mental state, I think there, but for the grace of God. Anyway, and in my case, it's like I'm not that far, from Nietzsche. So yeah, I'm hoping there is a God. I'm hoping it's your God and he's nice to me. I'll be like, wait, my boy Michael, can you? I was nice to him, right? All right. I called him a racist a few thousand times, but come on. And I said I like Catholics. I do. Only because they drink. Anyway. So no, really. I think you are espousing slave mentality. I think.
Slave morality, slave mentality. Yeah.
Morality. Yeah.
That's the criticism of Christianity, is that you just get bulldozed over if you're always the martyr, and if you're always turning the other cheek, you're just going to continually get slapped.
So isn't Tucker Catholic, or no? He's
Tucker is Episcopal. I'm not sure. He always says he was raised Episcopal. I think he's still
Episcopalian, but it's a similar moral structure, right?
Well,
as similar.
Yeah, it has very, very similar. You can get to the same conclusions on a lot of things from Episcopalianism. Yeah.
Okay, so everybody listen. So Tucker just had a clip. I think it's from one of his recent episodes. People can look it
Andrew
up.
Isker on.
Okay,
right? Is that what you're talking
about? Yeah. I don't know who. Yeah, I don't know who that guy was, but little potato-looking guy. But anyway, yes. Yeah. So that was bad. In which Tucker says, and I've heard this many times from religious intellectuals before, what do atheists say about why murder is wrong? Oh, it's just wrong. And Tucker's answer is, well, it's because he doesn't say this, but I assume it's like because this character in a book you read said it's wrong. Because God said it's wrong. And you're going to do whatever this character you read about, you can't show me ever. He might exist, and I'm an agnostic, so I'm saying you could be 100% right about this, but we haven't seen the evidence for it, bro.
I think there's a lot of evidence, but
there's no evidence, bro.
There's a lot of evidence.
there's no evidence. No.
Have you looked into any Eucharistic miracles or Marian apparitions? Or the Shroud of Turin? If you just want scientific evidence, there's that, but there's a lot of logical ways to get there too.
Evidence for what?
The real presence of God in the Eucharist. There's several documented cases of Eucharistic miracles.
The real existence of the God that's described in the New Testament of the Bible, that guy?
Well, it's
because there's a lot of gods running around.
The miracles
world, right? Is only that God that exists?
The miracles are consistent with that eschatology, yeah.
The miracles of Jesus? You mean water into wine?
No, I'm talking about water. I'm talking about miracles. I'm talking about a piece of bread in a church that has been consecrated, pulsating like a heart, or bleeding human blood. These are documented miracles. Nobody talks about. Nobody except hardcore Catholics know anything about this, but they are documented. And yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I know it sounds too silly to anybody who has never heard of it.
I've been trying for 3 years now to get you more into drugs, right? Haven't I? I have. And you've been a little resistant, I have to say. At Icarus, you haven't smoked nearly enough weed. But I'm wondering, like, have you, like, I haven't seen you in a little while. Have you started to dabble? Is this what's happening here?
Right.
Because it can lead you into really interesting ideas about spirituality and stuff. Jesus Christ.
But okay.
I want you to be there. I want Catholics and Orthodox Christians and Jews, Orthodox Jews to just stay exactly where they are. I love where they are.
Yeah.
Just don't fuck with other people. Don't be evangelical. Just be, and I love that. And I mean that. And I will fight.
Yeah.
I might even fight and possibly kill and die for that right. And I mean this. And I love it in so many ways, but I'm just saying, dude, isn't there an alternative way of thinking, which I think you might have previously inhabited briefly, called libertarianism, which is, and I mean like super small L, just, I mean like a basic vibe, a basic sensibility that doesn't like being controlled by governments, by the community, by other groups of people. True individualism. I'm saying to you that there is an individualism, or many individualisms. There's, I'm going to say there's multiple individualisms, meaning like ideologies of the individual, that are just as antagonistic to communism and fascism as your religious faith. There's options.
Well,
I'm not saying they're better. They're not better. They are not better. They're not better. They're not better. They're just different. And I just want people to have choices. Go ahead.
I'm making an argument for the individual here, not for the mass.
Well, for slavery to God.
Yeah, on an individual basis. But I think it's hard to find something that can give an individual a backbone to actually resist tyranny. I think the stakes are too high to just have a virtue of American frontierism and individualism. I like that. I like that impulse. But I from encountering tyranny, I think the stakes are too high. Individuals can be isolated and taken out. And to actually develop an individual to the point where he can resist tyranny, he usually has to appeal to a higher authority to resist that thing. The American idea of the cowboy is usually somebody who appeals to a higher authority. You might say it's my own morals. That's the American thing, is that it's just my way of doing things. But implicit in that is a Christian ethic, and you need to work on that to develop it.
What was the Christian ethic among cowboys in the American West?
Well, usually they stroll into town when there's a criminal abusing everybody.
You mean the guy in the movies? The Wyatt.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
You're talking about the John Wayne. You're talking about John Wayne.
Yeah.
Movies.
But you can see a great, if you want to talk about the frontierists going out and conquering the West, you can see a great commission thing happening in there, maybe. But
yes. No, I thought you were going to go there, because the missionaries, there were missionaries, I think, in most of the American West towns, or at least eventually they were there. And I thought that's where you were going.
Sure.
Nah. Come on, dude. The guys who settled, the men and women who settled the American West, were a bunch of anarchist perverts. I mean, obviously, like look at it. I mean, it was nothing but brothels and gunfights, and like whoever decides the law gets to decide the law. I mean, this was anarchist perverts, which, God bless them, and there's a lot to be said for that. But what was Christian about that?
not necessarily arguing for the early development of the West. I'm talking about resistance to tyranny in the post-industrial world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But, okay. This is where I was going with this too. Beyond that, we've got postmodernism coming up next week, right? Or is that? Okay, good. I see postmodernism as a limiting of scope of the world, not an expansive.
Now you've really pissed me off.
Yeah.
Now we're really in a fight. Okay, go ahead.
The pre-modern world believes in God and heaven and spirits and all things visible and invisible. The pre-modern world believes in that. As the world modernizes, it stops believing in the individual and transcendent and only believes in what can be measured and scientifically proven. That's the rational. And then the postmodernists say, you know what, we can't even trust that. That stuff's not even real. The stuff that we can measure and observe. All that really exists is the written word itself that we have written down. And so, it goes from we believe in this expansive world of creation to we believe in only what we can directly experience. And then that's not even real. What's real is the words on the page and the representation. The representation is superior to existence, to our experience with something itself. And I see this limiting in scope of what it means to be human as time goes on and we progress.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have, and I mean this, dude, this is amazing. So we have just witnessed the genesis, an appropriate word in this case, of what I'm going to call, and I totally mean this, and I really mean this, Michael, the Weimar periodization of world history. Global intellectual history. So you've divided it into 3 eras, essentially, or phases, and I think it's an amazing way to think about world history. Do it again. So, and let's be fair, I guess, Western history, but whatever. So like so antiquity, right, until the Middle Ages. So let's say, I don't know, roughly 400, 500 BC until roughly like what, 500 to 1000 AD, somewhere in there.
Let's say 1500 with the...
Cool.
Yeah.
Or even through the Middle Ages, right? Because that's especially the Middle Ages, right? My bad. It's through the Middle Ages. Do it again. Start over. So, human history until the Enlightenment is phase 1.
Sure. Yeah.
And in that phase, you're saying that the intellectual universe is actually open and infinite.
Yes.
And would you say it's curious, though?
Would I say it's curious? It is a closed system that is built on itself, but there's a mysticism, there's a practiced mysticism that directly experiences the transcendent and believes in the transcendent more so than there is.
And is open, therefore, to anything, right?
Yes, open to anything.
Because like the craziest, wackiest miracles can happen out of the blue, as in the Bible.
Yeah.
We don't know what can happen because it's God, right? So that in itself is openness.
Yeah.
Right?
Things that can't be measured can be real. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you want to say from the Enlightenment onward, like 16th century or so, until the 20th century, that era, or 21st century, really, you want to say, and this is your hella right here, the Enlightenment activists and intellectuals, and they would agree with us, right? They said from Descartes to Locke all the way forward in the Enlightenment said, no. We are going to instead prioritize, or what would you want to say? Like say that what is real is what is you said this, what is measurable, right? And we are going to, by doing that, making that claim, we're going to reduce human experience, spiritual phenomena to ones and zeros, right? To weights and measures, to pounds and ounces, to inches, to pixels to data bytes to all that. We're going to measure it, reduce it to what we can measure, form, shape, stack, assort, right? Science, baby.
Mm-hmm.
The introduction of scientific thinking, which is, and you and I agree on this, reductionist, and was explicitly hostile to and attempting to overthrow the mystical, spiritual, open-minded general culture and philosophy that ruled the Western world until then.
Yeah. And you get 19th century nationalism from that, and you get modernist totalitarianism from that.
Damn, dude, you get the machine gun, bro.
Yeah.
No, and I said this in the course.
Yeah.
Which course? One of our recent courses, that the invention of the machine gun by Hiram Maxim in the late 19th century is in many ways the apotheosis of modernity, right? It was the invention of this thing that could kill multiple men, hundreds of men, in seconds, because it reduced their lives, their bodies, and it reduced the killing mechanism to what is most efficient and effective. Armies and militaries before the 19th century, and you've seen people, everyone has seen this, even in the 19th century, they had like fucking ostrich feathers coming out of their helmets, right? They had all sorts of ornamentation, stuff that was just designed to be basically spiritual. It had no, in fact, it hurt you. It made you more like vulnerable on the battlefield.
Big shiny target. It made you a big shiny target.
The 19th century, and it was through the 19th century that this happened, and the Americans kind of led this, was the instrumentalization of warfare, right? It's what you're talking about, the reduction of it to scientific matter. What is the most efficient way to kill? And the machine gun, as I said, was kind of the height of that. And the machine gun was first employed by the United States and the Philippines in 1898. But then it was taken up most famously in World War I, when we really got down, killing thousands and thousands of men in one shot, so to speak, because you could pull the trigger and kill 1,000 men or 100 men at one shot. All right, so that's the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment is the machine gun. Look it up, everybody. Hiram Maxim, Anglo-American. I've written quite a bit about him in my forthcoming book. And then after World War II,
2 world wars happen. Then there's a crisis point.
Modernism killed so many people, man. Like, think about that. From Napoleon, roughly, like, let's just say modernism, 18, 20, 30, 40, whatever. From Napoleon through to Hiroshima. Although I would say Saigon. I would actually say Vietnam. I would say from Napoleon to Vietnam. My God. We, the human race, the human species, really perfected killing people. The efficiency, amazing. The machine gun, the ballistic missile, the tank, mustard gas, the nuclear bomb. Ooh, that's exciting. We killed 400,000, 300,000 Japanese human beings in 2 days. That's the Enlightenment. Oh, eugenics. That's the Enlightenment. Scientific racism. That's the Enlightenment, by the way. Racist colonialism. And I know there's a debate about this, but that's the Enlightenment. Man alive, that was a murderous little phase that we went through. About a 300 or 400 year phase, the Enlightenment phase, and Michael Weimer is dead ass fucking right on this. But then, so we get to 1945, or maybe for me it would be 1973. Okay, whatever, that Enlightenment mass murder efficiency stage then starts to disintegrate, right? Starts to break apart. The anti-colonial movements in the third world and the rise of postmodernist philosophy and Western academic institutions, and gosh, I mean, the rise of like feminism and gays and queerness and all this craziness and pop culture and all these many ways in which modern forms are being broken down. New forms of architecture, Frank Gehry, flowing walls and panels and giant, like huge structures that are where the walls like are undulating like waves. They don't look like regular walls. There are no straight lines anymore. It's postmodernism. And you want to say about that era what?
So the crisis of 2 world wars happened, and the greatest minds look at that and they say this modernism thing didn't work out. It creates these world-threatening totalitarian ideologies that kill millions of people. And so you're given 2 choices. Go to the pre-modern, which I think everybody in the academy saw as regressive, although there are a ton of amazing thinkers, Carl Jung included, who posited that. But he's seen as a weirdo. So you either go back and reintroduce mystical thinking, or you say all of those meta narratives, everything that we knew, everything that we thought we could measure, we actually can't measure. Our ways of knowing things aren't sufficient. The conclusions we draw from our own experience are wrong, and all we have is the discourse itself and the ideas in our head and the words.
Right.
And so that's all that exists. It
reduces, so that's postmodernism.
Yes.
Those are my people. Okay. Yeah. And the problem with that is
it reduces your scope. Now you don't even include what you can directly measure and experience, and you go entirely into abstraction in your head. Ooh. And the world becomes smaller. It becomes representations, and it becomes, I think, something even more pliable that can still allow for totalitarians to take over. Because, this was what Jordan Peterson called postmodern neo-Marxism, was because it just takes everything away. People sneak Marxism back into it because they have to and they want to, and they need some overarching thing. But I think it leaves you less grounded than you were before.
I'm not, I swear to God, I'm not kissing your ass when I say this. I just wish that Jordan Peterson made the argument the way that you do.
Yeah.
Because your version is so much better and smarter and clearer and compelling, and it makes me think harder. Yeah. And I know that many viewers are now wondering when we're going to talk about the tariff regime.
Yeah, the tariffs, yeah.
And Trump threatening Iran. There are right now as we speak 7 B-2 bombers, the stealth bombers that can kill everybody in the world in 5 minutes. 7 of them at the Diego Garcia airfield in the Indian Ocean, pointed at Iran as we speak. But we'll get there. Because who cares about that when we're debating the greatest questions in human history, at least human Western history. Yes, so postmodernism, yes, Foucault and Derrida and Thaddeus Russell and all these fucking freaks have said for about 50 years now that, discourse is everything. What we say, meaning discourse means what we say, what we think, language, words, conceptions, even feelings, expressions, that's all there is in the world, and people get offended and they get upset when I say this. That's not to say that means that there's very little. These are enormous, right? It also means that things are real, like Christianity are real, because you and millions and billions of people for hundreds of years, or thousands of years, have believed it in their hearts and have acted accordingly and have shaped their lives accordingly and shape everything they think and do around a set of ideas. How is that not real? Of course it's real, right? No one has ever said it's not real. It's super real. Christianity has shaped the world in material ways more than any force ever in human history, except for maybe capitalism. So of course it's real. And to be respected in that way, it doesn't mean you agree with it, but it is respected the way that the ocean and the sky are respected and the mountains are respected. They're there. You can't fuck with them. They're real. Along comes postmodernism and the linguistic, and you're right. It's called in academia, by the way, it's called the linguistic turn, which is that academics, as I said, from the 60s onward, started to think that it's all just language. Like there is nothing that's real underneath the language. We just experience things and we talk about them, we think about them with language, and that's what's real. So, for instance, people in the world experience death of their grandmother as a tragedy, and some people experience it as liberation, as a wonderful thing. In fact, some people in the world have hastened grandma's death because they believe that she was going to a better place, and they, to this day and forever, will believe that that's true. And how can we ever prove them wrong? We simply cannot. But yeah, so we now live, the postmodernist mind that I am part of does think, yeah, man, it's all language. And there isn't anything outside of language. What did Derrida say? There is nothing outside of the text.
Yeah.
I still believe that, but I can also understand very well your reaction to that and other people's reaction to that, because, and here's where Thaddeus Russell is like potentially a little subversive agent against Foucault and Derrida. I love the body, and I love sensation, and I love pleasure, and I love desire, and that's, my book Renegade History is sort of based on that, comes from that impulse, which no academic had never allowed themselves to express, by the way, but I did. There is something profoundly bodily and erotic and sensual about what you are saying, right? It's about the body. It's about lived experience. It's about feeling things through your skin, right? And through your head and through your mind, like direct sensory experiences is what you're saying. And for me, and for postmodernists, you're right. To us, it's all language. Can we talk about the news now?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to bring up that conflict because
it's amazing.
This is sort of a I don't know. It's a very, I've been disappointed with the moral character of Americans, people pro-Trump, people anti-Trump. Just the chaos and the rhetoric and just the temperature of the country and the temperature of things seems like we aren't even worth saving,
I think that every single day when I go on Twitter. I'm like, oh, these people need to be nuked now.
Yeah,
like why? No, and I say this as a postmodernist, okay, as a moral relativist. Like, actually, it makes sense. No, I in recent months, especially recent years, really, I've come to the conclusion, because I used to be like a kumbaya leftist socialist, like everybody loves everybody, and if everybody had an equal shot, we'd all be awesome. Oh no, it's very clear that like substantial portions of the population in this country, at least, serve no useful purpose for anybody at all, and therefore I don't get why we care about their lives. No, like why we want to protect their lives. Why do we want to protect the lives of people who are absolute zeros or negatives? And there's so many guys. If you're like getting upset with me from saying this, just go on Twitter for 5 minutes and look at the replies to almost any post from anybody. And you will see very quickly that most Americans are stupid, ignorant, and basically evil and serve no useful purpose and should be put down like elderly dogs. Was that radical? Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, come on, go on Twitter. Tell me these people should live. Why should these Twitter reply guys, these anonymous dudes on Twitter, I mean, does their mom love them? Like what, who? Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. You've got, I guess, as like a version of this is like Luigi Mangione getting the death penalty, or Pam Bondi wanting to give him the death penalty, is that you have the left making this murderer a hero. And if you pay attention to the left, all they are after is murder, murder, murder. I'm seeing bumper stickers, why is Trump still alive? It's a bad day that Trump is alive. Can we free Luigi and get him on Trump and Elon? Like that's what I'm seeing from the left on the ground in the real world is how do we murder these people?
My mother is turning 85 next week. 85 next week. She still wants to put a bullet in Donald Trump's head.
Yeah.
She would do it. She would volunteer. Just give her the gun. You got to teach her how to shoot a gun. But once you do that, she would do it. She would pull that trigger. And not just pull it, then she'd have a party. And all of San Francisco would come to the party.
And Trump's response to this is, well, let's murder that guy. I think if we murder him, if we kill that guy, that'll solve everything.
Right. Just kill your enemy. Yeah. I mean, it's logical. You know, it stands to reason. It just, historically, it hasn't held up. That's all.
Yeah.
How many heads of Hamas have they killed so far? I can't even keep count at this point. They've killed like dozens of the heads of Hamas, and yet we're still fighting.
Yeah. And then, you've got Trump endorsing Lindsey Graham. The guy in Florida, Randy Fine is his name. The AIPAC guy in Florida, Lindsey Graham. You've got him directly threatening Iran, and you could say this is 4D chess, but it seems like it's your hypothesis of Trump's going to let Netanyahu bulldoze Gaza, and then in return, he's going to start a war with Iran for Israel, maybe. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but it looks like we're moving in that direction.
Yeah.
And, and then you've got Marine Le Pen barred from... you just have cynical...
running for election in France because allegedly she embezzled funds from the EU to pay for her domestic political campaigns.
In 2004 to 2016.
Right. And it turns out many, many, many other EU ministers have done exactly the same thing. It's obviously political, no doubt about it. And hilariously, I heard like New York Times, the Pod Save America guys today say, you know, I understand why you would, crack down on a threat like this. It's not going to serve the purpose of liberals anymore. But I mean, sure, we need to like step in and stop these threats to democracy. Like they're completely down with it.
I see nothing but cynical authoritarianism.
Liberals in every country in the West want to put all of these people in prison still. Yeah. Which clearly they did with Trump. We know this. I mean,
Bolsonaro
how many times...
in Brazil.
Right.
Georgescu or in Romania.
Man,
now Le Pen.
You know what? We love freedom of speech and democracy until the people start saying wrong things and voting for the wrong people. Then we're going to put them all in prison.
Yeah.
I mean, this modern liberalism in Europe and America has been shown to be exactly that. When they are hegemonic, when they have no threat to their power, they're awesome. They love free speech. They love civil rights. Oh, they're all about it. But the second that they are truly threatened in their power, in this case, by the nationalist populist movement in Europe and America, oh my God, they're Adolf Hitler. And they want to put you in prison for disagreeing with them solely. And this is clear. This is very clear. Now, the problem is, Michael, the MAGA people, the nationalist populists, as soon as they gain political power, as we have just found out, want to do exactly the same.
Yeah.
Put their enemies in prison. Which is why everyone needs to listen to Thaddeus Russell. For fuck's sake, perpetual oppositionalism is the only way to go. Never merge your identity with any fucking political movement, especially one that's going to take state power. You're going to merge your identity with a movement that takes state power? You're going to merge your identity, therefore, with the state? MAGA folks, all you libertarians, all you right-wingers, all you conservatives who signed on to the Trump administration, to the Trump movement, to MAGA, who screamed at me when I said don't do that on Twitter. Yeah, you're going to live with it now. You got 3.5 more years, too. I'm waiting. The MAGA movement, there's going to be shedding. There's going to be shedding of people. I can just see it. Many, many more libertarians and conservatives are going to see this guy and this movement for what it is, which is a stupid, authoritarian, reactionary regime, which in many cases, I love what they're doing. Like probably 2/3 of what they're doing is fantastic, and 1/3 is straight up fascism. And I don't want to make that exchange. Thank you.
I want this thing to succeed. I want Trumpism to succeed. I want nationalist populism to succeed. I want an alternative to liberalism. I want a fourth political theory. I want something new to take over.
Hell yeah.
And I want the ground to be leveled, and I want something new for the future. We are like so close with all the advancements in technology to like what Jeffrey Sachs is even calling a potential golden age with how far AI is coming, that like if we just maintain peace, technology is apparently gonna make leaps and bounds, and we're gonna, even Democrats, like you were talking about last week, Ethan Klein talking about abundance, that you need to win over the technological sector, that you need, like AI is going to liberate people from their jobs. It's going to allow people to create more things, and it's going to automate things even more, hopefully, if we play our cards right and we do things right. If you just let that happen and you don't bomb places, things will pretty much take care of themselves. But like, it seems like the American people are too hysterical, too wrapped up in being a Cory Booker who talks on the House floor for 24 hours for no reason at all.
Yep.
To give peace a chance and to give prosperity a chance. And the things that the Trump administration, like the Trump administration should go after people like Fauci, should go after the Bidens. It should revoke people's security clearance. There are crimes here that need to be prosecuted for actual governance to move forward and for people to trust institutions again. But they're not, it's just not happening yet. It's not happening in a clear way. The deportation thing, everything is being rolled out in his chaotic way, and there's no clarity of message. There's no clarity of anything. And it seems to be childish poking of your opponents, childish provocations, flirting with a third term because it'll drive your enemies crazy, and then your enemies go crazier, and then you get to, it seems very tit for tat, immature. Nobody's taking the high road at all in America, and we are potentially dooming ourselves by owning the libs. And you can own the libs enough, but if they go crazy enough, they will burn everything down, and they will create a crisis. So, Americans try to create a future where liberals feel like they can just coast and be calm. Try to cultivate some sort of level of peace where they feel at ease in some way.
Guys, liberals still own all the newspapers and media outlets and colleges.
Yeah.
They own them, guys. They own them. 99% of all of the cultural institutions in America are owned and controlled by liberals. This show is now going to be called Wime Time. Yes. We're now renaming it. I'm done with Unreported. That was brilliant, dude. No, I mean,
you got tens of millions of dollars being spent on the Wisconsin Supreme Court election.
Yes.
Nobody should care about the Wisconsin Supreme Court election.
Thank you.
George Soros and Elon Musk should not be having a dick measuring contest at every local election. Like, this is politics should not be taking over your mind like this.
Have you heard about Jewish guys?
Yeah, there's more about that.
I never got a full confirmation on that, even though I've been around a lot of Jewish guys. I don't know. It's possible. I'm not convinced.
Oh,
I think George Soros would lose that battle, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm sure Elon, a big dick?
I'm sure Elon has access to all of the enlargement technology and procedures that are available.
Well, he does have that.
Luciferian pro-natalist weird ideology.
Did you not see though today that Elon is gone?
Well, is he out completely, or is he just out in 130 days?
He's about to be. I've been waiting. Every single day I've been waiting for this.
Yeah.
Trump, I think, and somebody else, somebody in the administration basically said that, he's going to take a leave of absence or step down, so Tesla, the sales since January 1st, sales are down 13% and the stock is down 25%. This is calamitous, over the cliff kind of shit. And I think that's what's driving this. But
potentially, but also it was the most overinflated stock built off of nothing to begin with. So this could be a regression to its actual price valuation. And if you believe in electric vehicles and you believe in SpaceX and you believe in this technology, it's a good opportunity to buy the.
Can we talk about Elon Musk again? I think I did this before, but oh my God. Okay. So Thomas Edison, who was an asshole and was a censor and a Christian fundamentalist and sucked in so many ways and was anti-freedom. He invented the motion picture technology, like the projector, the camera, the whole joint. Thomas Edison made that possible. The light bulb, for God's sake, he invented it. Every single human being on planet Earth enjoys the light bulb and is improved. You can't even measure it. How much time Henry Ford made automobiles affordable for average working class Americans. He also paid people a living wage when living wage wasn't a political project. He just did it, $4 a day back in the 1920s when that was a solid middle class salary.
A lot of good ideas at Henry Ford.
Yeah, I know. He was not a fan of Israel. Let's just say that. But I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on. Steve Jobs.
Are you saying that these people actually made things?
They made things that have been extremely useful and productive for everybody, for many, 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 many people. Clearly, this motherfucking South African potato-faced bitch, I'm sorry, like, what have his companies actually produced for people? I'm sorry, like, I don't get it. So the Boring Company, great idea. I love the ideas. The ideas are fantastic, Elon. Dig tunnels under LA and other under cities, and we'll have transportation systems under there in these tunnels and blah. Great, do it. Where are they? Who is riding through a tunnel produced by the Boring Company? Nobody. Okay. SpaceX, the most famous, the most spectacular is his business model. I'm sorry. The business model of Elon Musk is actually get hundreds of millions of dollars in government contracts to make things that are spectacular, that impress people, and that's it. Like SpaceX, that shit's amazing. The fucking rockets go up and they come back and they dock and that shit. And it's amazing. I watch them. I'm like, wow, that's awesome, dude. How do I benefit from this? How do you benefit from? How has anybody benefited from this who doesn't work for SpaceX? Maybe I've heard that SpaceX is going to be delivering cargo from between China and the United States and Europe, and cars are going to be coming over and everything's going to be cheaper and better, and it's going to be so amazing. Rockets are going to be delivering stuff to and fro and awesome. Oh, yeah. Okay. When that happens, I will be standing in my chair cheering for it. It hasn't happened. Neuralink. Oh, he's going to cure blindness and paralysis. My God, I would suck his fucking dick if he does that. Where is it? Where is it? Elon Musk is a fucking fraud. He's a fraud. I don't get it. Tesla. Okay. So it's a car with an electronic battery that many other companies have done. There's all sorts of EVs you can get. I mean, Teslas are nice. They're upscale. I've been in them. The panel is awesome. Super smooth. Sure. And how many Americans own a Tesla? Some, for sure. I would imagine it's around 1% or less. And that company is the only company of his that has done anything tangibly productive and positive for actual human beings. Oh, we're going to live on Mars. Oh, that's what he's given us? A promise to live on Mars? Henry Ford gave us cars to run around the country in. Thomas Edison gave us light bulbs to illuminate our homes all night long. Steve Jobs gave us these amazing magical things that I'm using right now to talk to you across time and space, and that everybody can see. And what's his face? Microsoft, Bill Gates. Yes, they made this, and I don't like these guys, but they made shit that we all use all the time that made life better. Elon Musk hasn't produced a fucking thing for ordinary people who aren't rich. I'm serious. What is this dude? Why do we care? What has he made that makes my life better? What has he made that makes your life better? Anybody listening to me, what has Elon Musk made that makes your life better? This is ridiculous that he is valorized, worshipped, and placed in the top of the government because of what? What has he done to make the world better? Damn near fucking nothing. I hope I have a Twitter account tomorrow.
Yeah. So, as we're wrapping up, I wanted to mention a thing you've been following is
the
potential. He's a liberal also. He's a liberal at heart.
Yeah.
He's a Zionist, Luciferian, technologist, liberal. Look at his Halloween costumes. Look at how he presents himself.
The transhumanism piece.
Yeah.
And, you know, Joe Allen, my buddy, who's been on my show, he's all over it. Steve Bannon hates him for this reason.
Yes. Yeah.
For the transhumanism stuff. I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And okay, but just wrap it up. You've been talking for weeks and months even about the potential split between MAGA, the conservative movement, and Israel. As the Trump administration has become more and more pro-Israel, this is really starting to hit the front. That I'm not sure if we're referring to the same interview, but Andrew Isker, author of the Boniface option, I believe, he spent a good 20 minutes or so on Tucker talking about dispensationalism and how the Bible disproves dispensationalism, about how there's no reason to support Israel in the Bible. That's not how you read the Bible. So another great episode on that. If you want to go after Zionism in America, you have to go after Protestantism, and you have to say these Protestants are reading the Bible wrong. We were right up until the 19th century. John Derby did not invent a new Bible. John Derby is not the first person to be right about the Bible. He's actually very wrong.
Wow.
Beyond that, right wing posing free speech restrictions on college campus. So there was Rabbi Shemkov at this hearing from the Lubavitch. Everybody remembers him from the sewer last year. So.
Do you know? Did you know that there are there's a few, not a lot, but there's a few Jews who live above ground? Did you know that?
There's a few. Yeah,
there's a few.
I'm just reporting the news. So this is the same group famous for the sewer incident last year. They were testifying about anti-Semitism on college campus. They used the line, "We cannot merely It's not enough to be not anti-Semitic. You have to be anti-Semitic."
Right.
And all these conservative influencers, from Matt Walsh to Candace Owens, who's already on this side, but Matt Walsh, currently working at the Daily Wire, and Stephen Crowder, who hey, this is straight out of the BLM playbook. We're Americans. Right. We have free speech. We're not falling for critical race theory again. And so the split is already starting to happen. I think it's important to note Stephen Crowder, because he split up with Owen Benjamin over Owen Benjamin being critical of Israel about 6 years ago. So he's now finally come around to this, and it's gaining momentum on the right. It's really starting to happen. And I think Steve Bannon is starting to crack just a little. We can hope for that. And Thomas Massie is introducing a dual citizenship disclosure bill, where anybody running for public office or anybody serving in the government has to disclose if they have dual citizenship.
Love it.
So the right is moving on this. The right is losing their allegiance to Israel.
God, I hope so.
One step at a time.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but I have to go.
We do.
We have to go.
Let me pull this up. Layla sent a super chat that I just want to get out here, if I can find it. Give me a second. Thank you, Layla. She said, "You fellas were going hard." I love it. Some people were frustrated that we went into philosophy, but none of them paid us, so we don't care what they think. And the people who enjoy us talking about philosophy will have an opportunity to discuss more philosophy with the postmodernism course next week on Unregistered Academy, right?
So tomorrow, the live stream, Unregistered Live, tomorrow night, Thursday night, I will be talking about the postmodernism course, which will be starting next week. So that's the place to do it.
Yeah, unregisteredacademy.com. All of our banners disappeared. And then you can hang with Layla. You can hang with us tonight at the after show, correct?
Yep. But but go to patreon.com first.
Yes.
/unregistered to be part of the after show. Yeah, there he is. But then the Academy is where it's at.
The Academy for the courses.
Unregisteredacademy.com. Postmodernism coming up next week. And the after show is starting right now, and I'm going there.
Great. Oh man, I have a historical question I need to ask you on the after show. A niche 1940s historical question.
Cool.
About FDR.
We'll do it then.
Yeah, we'll do it. All right, sweet. See you over there.
Peace.
Shalom.